You may be seated as I teach from this subject. Church, you got to see it from a proper perspective. Sister Misa, seeing it or viewing it from a proper perspective simply means to see it as it really is, the truth of the matter. To see it according to its relative importance. To see it from an accurate and factual basis. And see, as a believer, we don't see or we don't have the perspective of the world. Or at least we're not supposed to have the perspective of the world. We're supposed to see things differently. We have a different perspective, Brother Rogers, when it comes to money and material things. Why is that? Because the Bible is clear, Deacon Rogers, that your life don't consist of the things that you possess. Minister Brian, the Bible says that you came into this world with nothing. And the key word in that verse, it is certain that when you leave here, you will take nothing with you. What are you saying, Pastor? We see material things in a different light. We not only have this perspective about money and material things, we have this perspective about the world. We don't see the world the same as the world sees the world. We see the world as this global phenomenon that's passing away. We see the world differently because if you don't believe this, you better listen to your pastor and you better leave here believing today. This world is not your home. Now, the new heavens and the new earth will be your eternal home. But this thing you see out here right now, this world is not your home. But not only do we see money and things in a different perspective, not only do we see this world in a different perspective, you better see people in a different perspective. Jesus did. Jesus said that he didn't put no confidence in man. He didn't commit himself to man because he knew what was in him. And so you got to understand that when it comes to people, all have sinned and come short of the glory. What are you saying? Even if they blood bought and blood washed and spirit filled, they still have the propensity to sin. And see, don't you ever think that people ain't capable of doing it because your family is capable of doing it. Your loved ones, your people on your job that you've been working with for 20 years, they capable of doing it. Not only doing it to you. But when it comes down to seeing things in a different perspective, what we really got to see is ourself. And God tried to teach us to see ourselves in a different perspective. Now I know how you see yourself. You love yourself, and you ain't never supposed to love yourself. Never supposed to love yourself. You ain't supposed to fall in love with limit. You ain't supposed to fall in love with weakness. You ain't supposed to fall in love with. But I know you love yourself, and I know that because the beauty in the cosmetic industry is booming. You want to fix yourself up. You want to look good. You even got this thing, and I'm still trying to figure it out. And nobody won't come and help me figure this thing out. Why people post IA or AI pictures of themselves? It's not you. It can never be you. And who you trying to catfish? You know that ain't you. And what you telling me and what you telling the world when you post these AI, you telling the world I don't like myself. So I want to present a different me so you'll see something different in me. But let me tell you like this, when you catfish him and you send him an AI, when you meet him, you can't, the AI don't meet him. You meet him. So you might as well let him see what he's getting from the get-go. And if he's going to reject you, it'll save you some travel fees. It'll save you some time. But we got to see ourselves. Man, look what the Bible tells us about ourselves. He said, don't think more highly than you ought to think. As a matter of fact, the Bible says, think soberly of yourself. Don't be a narcissist when it comes to you. Don't think you all of that. Listen, from the pulpit to the pew, I want you to know, some of you didn't know it, we ain't all of that. How you know we ain't all of that? Because we get sick. We still got to take a bath every day. We still got to eat. You know who all of that? And I say when we get into eternity, there's only going to be one celebrity I don't care how many, you're going to go home and watch football today. I don't care how many superstars you see. When we get to heaven, there ain't going to be but one superstar or one celebrity. The Bible said, I saw great and small stand before him. I saw the rich and the poor stand before him. I saw all political persuasion. But when it comes down to it, the Bible said every knee going to bow and every tongue going to confess to that superstar that we call Jesus. And he got to be a superstar because he came down through 42 generations, a superstar. He died on a cross and he raised again. And the Bible said when he got up, you know he's a superstar because he said all power, not just on earth, but in heaven has been given over to me. I got all power. That means that man ain't got no power, but he can't have power because Jesus got it all. Satan ain't got no power. How can Satan have any power when Jesus got it all? We ought to think soberly of ourselves. But then when we start talking about perspective, you got to understand that God has a perspective. And we said we got to have a proper perspective, but God has what is called a providential perspective. Never heard of that word, Pastor, that phrase. What is a providential perspective? That means that God sees it all. That means that he covers it all. He covers what was, he covers what is, and he covers what will be. He covers your shoulda, he covers your woulda, he covers it all. He covers it all. He has this providential perspective on everything. He says, I know the thoughts that I think toward you. So you got to keep it in proper perspective. So it's three things this verse is going to scream at us today. The verse is going to scream first at the cognition of God. The cognition of God. Then it's going to tell you about the composition of God. The composition of God. Then it's going to come home, and I love this. It's going to tell you about the fruition of God. So we got the cognition, we got the composition, and we got the fruition of God. Pastor, what do you mean by the cognition of God? Well, every time we start talking about cognition, it infers of a mental activity. It infers that God has a thought process. He says, well, I know the thoughts that I think. That's deep, Brother Hightower, because he said, I'm fully aware of what I'm thinking. You ain't fully aware of what you're thinking because some thoughts come in your head that you say, oh my God, I hope nobody don't know I'm thinking that. But God is fully aware of his thoughts. See, I want you to understand something, Sister Pastor. Do you know that nothing ever runs across God's mind? Do you know that nothing ever comes to God's mind? Do you know that God never come up with an idea? He's fully aware of what's going on. Look at the first three words. He says, but I know. That's what he says. The Hebrew word is the Hebrew word yada. I love it because it's in the first person singular, meaning that it's a completed action. I don't understand what you mean by it's a completed action. What I mean by that is that God cannot acquire knowledge. He can't learn anything. You know that God never got a degree? He can't go to school. He couldn't go to college. He couldn't learn. He can't ever sit him down and teach him anything. You'll never come to God and say, Lord, guess what? Because he already knows. You'll never come to God and say, you ain't going to believe this. No. He already knows. Listen. You'll never put a bug in God's ear. You don't have to worry. You might as well keep your glass upright because you'll never spill the tea with God. He already knows. This is the kind of God that we serve. He says, my thoughts. That's what he said. He said, I know the thoughts that I have. Now, why does he say thoughts that I have and not you have? Because his thoughts are higher than your thoughts. See, and I like this when God said my thoughts are higher than your thoughts, because what God is doing is what we call a comparative analysis of he and you. He wants you to know that he is different than us. When things start, what God is saying is, I started. See, if you don't know that God's thoughts are higher than our thoughts, you'll start thinking, what is God thinking? You'll start questioning God when things happen in your life. Now, I know it's Sunday morning, you're going to say amen, but you have questioned God. How you know? Because I've questioned, I've said, what was God thinking to let this come into my life at this time? What was God thinking to put me in this position? What was God thinking? I'm saved. I'm born in the family of God. What was God thinking? And you'll begin to question what God thinking. And when you start questioning what God thinking, you'll start thinking that God is coming up with these thoughts. And you'll think that because you don't have a proper perspective. His thoughts, let me tell you about his thoughts. We're doing a comparative analysis. His thoughts are, listen, unlike our thoughts, his thoughts are comprehensive. Think about that. His thoughts are comprehensive. He knows all. When he make a decision, he has taken into consideration everything about our situation and determined the best outcome that's going to bring us good and bring him glory. God would never come back and say, shoot, I didn't even consider that. Because God don't have to consider that's already been done before we even got here. His thoughts are not like our thoughts because his thoughts are comprehensive, but his thoughts are not like our thoughts because his thoughts are incomprehensible. What do you mean? Meaning, now listen, if you listen, say amen. Now you got to get this, you got to see this from a proper perspective. If you don't get anything else, get this. When God begins to work in your life, listen, when God begins to work in your life, when God does something in your life, in the beginning, you ain't gonna understand what he's doing. Gonna mess you up. Gonna completely destroy you because you don't understand what God is doing. You can't see it from a proper perspective. I'm in the Bible. I bet you I'm in the Bible. You can't see it and you don't understand, but look how good Jesus is. Jesus says to you, I ain't gonna leave you hanging. Look what Jesus says. First of all, I want you to look at Acts chapter 15, verse 18 before I show you what Jesus said. I don't want to cheat you. He says, known unto God are all his works from the beginning of the world. God has already worked it in, Deacon Mathis, and worked it out before he created the world. I want you to listen to that now. Before he created the world, he had already finished the work. Let this sink in. Before he created the world, he knew his work, ordained his work, and finished his work. And all he got to do is, once he created time, just allow his work to manifest itself in time. You got to see this from a proper perspective. And see, once it get in time, listen, he know when to start it, he know how to start it, he know how to stop it, he know how to make sure that it gets complete. That's why Paul said, when it pleased God to reveal Christ in me, not if he was going to reveal Christ, when it pleased God. And listen, let me tell you what happened to you. When it pleased God to bring that situation into your life, but it's also going to please God to end that situation in your life. You got to hear me this morning. You got to hear me. See, God never started work and then got to figure out how you going to complete it. See, you'll start a work and try to figure it out as you go. I'm talking to the men now. I ain't talking to you women. I'm talking to men. We'll start a relationship and then quit in the middle of the relationship. And see, the reason why you start the relationship is because it looked good. It felt good. But when good wear off, there you go. Ladies, you do know your good will wear out. That's why you shouldn't let him touch the goods until he put a ring on it. Because he'll get bored with your goods, and there he go, and you trying to figure out why he left in the middle. Because man will start something, and he won't complete it. Now look what he said. Look what he says now. He says, but I know. Listen what he says now. But I know, which suggests that you don't need to know. As long as God knows, he says, but I know, That suggests you don't need to know. Well, what do I need to know? Just obeying. Now, in the beginning, you're not going to understand what he's doing. You're not. It's impossible for you to understand what God is doing in your life. But Jesus is not going to leave you hanging. When you look at John chapter 13, look what Jesus said. They ain't going to leave you hanging. John chapter 13, verse 7. Jesus answered and said unto him, what I do, thou knowest not now. He said, right now, you don't know what I'm doing. And there's somebody in this church this morning that God is doing something in your life, and you're saying, I don't understand this. You don't understand it right now. But look at the promise Jesus tell you. But thou shalt know hereafter. Listen at me now. I'm finna give you Bible. You ain't gonna know when it gets started, but God will never leave you hanging. In time, he gonna show you what was happening. Give me Bible, Pastor, because I'm at that point where some things going on in my life, and I don't know why God did it, and what God is doing. Here it is. When God put Joseph in the pit, he didn't know. You know that boy says, why am I in this pit? I'm my daddy's child too. If some of you are in a pit and you say, why am I here? I go to church. I live my life right. I'm a faithful wife. I raise my kids. I treat my parents right. Why am I in the pit? And then the boy go in Potiphar's house and get lied on. The boy don't know what's going on. But God never leave you in this state of not knowing. Give me Bible. How do you know Joseph found out what was going on? Because he tell his brothers. He said, you meant it for evil. Now, he didn't know what was going on at the time in the beginning. He said, now you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good because he was doing something. What was he doing? By putting me in the pit, by teaching me in Potiphar's house, by putting me in the prison, which was my promotion to the palace. What God was doing was using me to save many people alive. I'm telling you that if you're in a situation where you don't know what's going on, keep trusting God. He's going to tell you. He's going to tell you. See, when you're going through afflictions, you don't know. But it's going to come a time when you're going to say, it was good for me. When God showed you what the afflictions did for you, it was good for me. You see, he said, I know the thoughts that I think towards you. I like that because God says, I know, I want somebody to hear me. I know about your situation. What he's saying is, I don't have to get information about your situation. I don't have to put two and two together about you. Give me Bible. When God goes in the wine press and finds Gideon hiding wheat, he never asked Gideon, why you hiding this wheat? What you doing? Because he knew. He knew exactly why Gideon was there. He didn't go down to Sodom and ask Lot. He knew why Lot was there. The Bible said Lot pitched his tent towards Sodom because he thought the grass was greener on the other side. God knew. When God deal with you, don't think that your situation is lost on God. When Moses was on the backside of the desert, he never asked Moses, what you doing on the backside of the desert? He knew. When God sent Nathan down to deal with David about his adultery, he didn't have to ask David what you did. He said, David, thou art the man. How did he know? Because God had told him. Nathan wasn't there when David sinned, but God told him he the man. He the cause of all this mess. And I'm telling you, whatever your situation is, don't you think that God don't know. God knows. And see, this bring me some peace in my life because I got the proper perspective, Brother Hightower. I know God know about my situation. And if you got a situation in here this morning, don't you leave this building not knowing that God knows about your situation. But here's the question, Deacon Matthew. Here's the $1 million question. Do you know that God knows about you? I hear you, Pastor. I hear you saying it, Pastor. But the pastor is asking you the question, do you know? Don't take my word. See, let me tell you something. You hear my word, but you don't take me home with you. You don't take the pastor home. The pastor ain't sitting next to you preaching to you. You got to know God for yourself. Now, you got to know that God know about you. Now the question is, what do God know about me? And it's important because you got to have the proper perspective. Here it is what you got to know. You got to know that God knows us individually. Now that's deep there. That's deep there. That's deep. God comes to them and says, I know the thoughts that I think toward you. Why is that deep? Because when God says this, he was talking to a whole nation of people that was in captivity in Babylon. A whole nation. Watch this, Sister Patsy. And when he come, he don't say, I know the thoughts that I think toward y'all. He said, I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saying, I got a thought about every individual in the nation of, Lord have mercy. God's so individualistic that when he says, I know every heavenly body in the star, I know them by name. There are billions and billions of stars, and God is so deep that he says, I know them individually. Individually. He says, I know the thoughts that I think toward you. See, Christ loves the church, but the church is made up of individuals. So we hear that all the time. God is for the church. Christ loves the church. He died for the church. But what that really means is that he died for the individuals in the church. When we talk so corporately, we'll say things like this. He came to seek and save that which was lost. You know what that was lost? Each individual. I bet you I can point at everybody in here and all of us were lost. And when Christ came, he had each individual on his mind and he saved us one person at a time. Listen at me now. See, the Bible was written to the church corporately, but was written to us specifically. So when you read the Bible will talk about the church, but the Bible will talk to you individually. See, I wouldn't trust the Bible if it wasn't speaking to me. I've been stopped reading the Bible. Anybody in here that's been saved for a while, God don't want you to read the Bible. You know what God wants you to do? He wants you to study the Bible. The Bible don't say read to show yourself approved. It says study to show thyself approved unto God. Why does God want us to study? Because when you study the Bible, you're studying you. When you study Israel is nothing but a picture of you. Everything you see, that's what we call Israel. He called Israel his son. So when God goes down to Egypt to get Israel out, he gets them out individually. Each individual had to kill the lamb was killed. Each individual had to eat the lamb and the bitter herbs and put the blood on the doorpost so each individual in the house would be spared. And when they came out, we read that Israel goes over on dry ground. But what it's really saying is each individual goes through on dry ground. So I'm going through on dry ground, but brother Taylor Brown back there telling me, oh, my shoes stuck, Pastor. See, and then God lied. Because every person has to go through on dry ground. So when God blesses the church, he's talking about blessing individuals. That's what he talking about. See, when we start talking about God's work, it's seen as a whole, but in reality, it's about individuals. So he comes to Egypt and get them out. Come to the Red Sea and get them out. Watch this now. When Christ returned, the Bible said he gonna descend with a shout. Watch what it says now. And the dead in Christ gonna raise. You know who really gonna raise? Each individual that has fell asleep in Christ. He coming back at individuals. Now we gonna go up together, but we ain't gonna be stuck together. We gonna go up individually. I don't want to be stuck to Brother Brown in eternity. I want to be an individual. When I go get my crown and when I go get my reward, CJ, you can't share my reward with me because the work I did here was for individual. I might did it for the church, but I did it individually. God is going to judge me individually. I bet you when I stand before God, Emmanuel Fellowship ain't going to stand with me. Everybody going to come as an individual and give an account for what you did individually. So you got to know that God loves us as individuals. When he wrote our name in the Lamb's Book of Life, he didn't write Emmanuel Fellowship. He didn't write the church. He wrote each name individually. And I'm so glad he wrote my name as an individual. But not only does he love us as individuals, he loves us intimately. Watch what he says. I know the thoughts that I have towards you. Let's beat there. The thoughts that I have is toward you. Now, that's Old Testament. When you get to the New Testament, here's what Jesus say, and we misquote it. By this shall all men know that you're my disciple because you have love one for another. That's not what it say. You done destroyed the whole verse when you say that. He said, by this shall all men know that you're my disciple when you have love one toward another. Love one to another. See, God don't want your love to have origination but no destination. God want my love to go to you. See, you can't tell me your love go to me when you won't give me a ride home from church. You can't tell me your love go to me when you won't do nothing for the church. When you won't bring a box of chicken to a funeral repast. You can't tell me you got love for me. You shake my hand and you smile in my face, but we ask you to bring some cups and you too busy to go by Dollar General and too cheap to go by Dollar General and get some forks and spoons. You can't tell me you love me. When you say that, I said, no, no. Your horizontal don't match your vertical. What are you talking about, Pastor? Because the Bible said, how can a man love God vertically and don't love his brother who we see every day horizontally? So the only way you know you're in Christ is that your love vertically is the same as your love horizontally. I love one to another, and God loved us intimately. Listen at me. He said, I love you. Toward you, on your behalf, concerning you. I have these thoughts concerning you. That's what he says to Jeremiah. And I like this because it's a word to us. He said, before I formed you in the belly, I knew thee. This is intimate. God was intimate with us before we even got here. Before mama ever met daddy, God was already intimate with me. He said, I formed you in the belly. But before I formed you, watch what he said. He said, before you came out of the womb, I had sanctified thee. And I had ordained you to be what you were created for. See, everybody in this room, if you're saved, you were created for something in God. Do you know what you was created for? Now, it's not for the pastor to figure out for you. It's for you to be intimate with the one who was intimate with you and figure out, like Paul on the Damascus road, who art thou, Lord? I'm Jesus, whom thou persecute. Well, since I know you, Jesus, what would you have me do? What was I created for? Paul never knew what he was created for. Paul thought he was created to be a church killer, not knowing he was created to be a church builder. He said, I ordain you. That means you got the position and didn't even interview for it. Got the position and you didn't even apply for it. God just gave you the position. See, I got to understand that God is intimate with me because of what Jesus said. Jesus said, a sparrow falls to the ground, and God is so intimate with every single sparrow that when a sparrow falls, God knows it. Then he comes back to let you know how much God loves you. He said, but you are much more valuable than a sparrow. What he's saying is, I didn't die for a sparrow. I didn't go on the cross for a sparrow. I didn't go on the tomb for 3 days for a sparrow. I didn't come out with all power in my given to me for a sparrow. I did that for you. I'm not sitting on the right hand of power interceding for no sparrow. You got to see this thing in its proper perspective. God is intimate with you. And see, here's what I can't understand. You saved, but you don't know how much God loves you. Once I figured out how much God loved me, it made life a lot easier. God calls me, and then, I don't know if I'm interpreting the word right, but God calls me beloved. Now, we don't use that word much, beloved. We just use the word love, but there's this prefix on the word love that said be loved. So this is how I describe it. Be loved means you was loved before you got him. So since you be loved, you ought to be right. If you be loved, you ought to be truthful. If you be loved, you ought to be holy because you was be loved. Intimate details about you. He know all your dark secrets and still love you. All your hidden things that you've done that you ain't told nobody about. God knows them about you and he still love you. God knows our deepest secret. He knows about our sins. He knows about our situation. He knows about our sickness in our body. He knows about what we're going through. He knows about our motives. He knows about our mischief. He knows about our mistakes. He knows about our frustration. He knows about our appreciation. He knows about our anticipation. God knows everything about us. There's nothing that God don't know about us. Now listen to this. Let me drop this on you. See if you can get this. The reason why you sin and you don't get punished for it. How about that? Look how I'm saying. You even saying last night, do you still here? Saying this weekend, and you here. Put in your body when once supposed to be in body, but you ain't got chastised. You know that's not your wife. Have you ever thought about that? All the sins you done got away with, and you never got punished for it. Can I tell you why you didn't? Somebody never told you this before. Because he knows you. That seems so simple, don't it? No. The reason why you didn't get, now that don't mean go out and sin today and you ain't gonna get punished for it. Try God if you want to and mess around and find out. What I'm saying to you, the reason why, and nobody never told you this, I'm in the Bible. The reason why you got away with the sin is because God knows you. Bible pastor. You can't just tell us that and then leave us. I see Sister Kim mind wondering. She thinking it's God. Pastor just gonna tell us this. You know me, babe. I've been your pastor for a long time. You know I don't just tell you nothing and just leave you out there without giving you Bible. He knows us, so we get away with it. Here it is, Psalm 103:14. Here's your verse. For he knoweth our frame. He remembers that we are dust. I'm going to punish, he does. I'm going to whoop his tip. Wait a minute. He does. What God is saying, I remember that I formed him from the dust of the ground. And I had to blow in this dust. And if I don't blow in this dust, he's still in the ground. But when I blew in this dust, I remembered that if I don't strengthen him, he just weak dust. If I don't inform him, he's ignorant dust. If I don't put this treasure in him, he's worthless dust. If I don't save him, he's lost dust. This dust can't stop itself. This dust can't control itself. This dust will mess up himself. And when the wind blows, there goes dust. So a lot of times you don't get chastised because he remembers, he just does. And he got to have mercy on you because a lot of things we do, if he don't do it for us, it'll never get done. With dust. Listen. He says, I know the thoughts I think towards you. Let me tell you what that means. He says, I know the plans that I have for you. You got to see it in its proper perspective. He said, I got some plans for you. I know you're in this situation, but I want you to know, I know, you don't, I know the plans I have for you, even in this situation. And these plans was conceived in eternity, and I'm going to manifest them in time. Now, can I tell you about the plans? Let me tell you the plans God got for you. I want to describe the plans so you won't leave here not understanding. He said, I know the thought, I know the plans I have for you. Let me tell you about the plans he have for you. Number one, you got to know this, that these plans he have for you is what we call fixed plans. They are fixed. What does that mean? He won't change them. Whatever God has decreed to happen in your life, it won't change. Now, I'm not talking about for your bad. I'm talking about for your good. You got a situation in your life, and the situation ain't got no better. And God says, that hasn't changed my plans. Don't you think that my plans have not changed because your situation hadn't gotten better? I'm teaching. You better hear the pastor. I'm giving you a proper perspective. There are fixed plans. Nothing can change the plans. David, you're going to be king. But I'm going join up with the Philistines. You still can't change my plans. But Saul is running and chasing me. That still don't change my plans. But I've been running for 14. I'm talking to somebody. I've been in this thing for 14 years. That's how long David running. Has anybody been in it for years? Well, I'm here to tell you this morning, the plan hadn't changed. That the time don't change the plan. Give me another one, Pastor. That sounds good, but you got to give me another to make sure it's doctrine. Israel, you're going to the promised land. But look at us, we're in the wilderness. The plans hadn't changed. But there's a Jericho in front of us. The plans hadn't changed. We get to the front door of the wilderness, of the promised land, and there's giants over in the land. But my plans, I'm mad at the 10-5 because he think that giants can change my plans. What is a giant to him that's almighty? I'm telling you, the plans haven't changed. Give me another one. Give me. Come on to the New Testament, Pastor. You on the old covenant. Come here. Christ gonna rise again, disciples. But they killed him on the cross. My plans haven't changed. He been in that grave for 3 days. My plans haven't changed. Wait a minute, God. They just roll a stone and put the seal of Pilate on the stone. But my plans haven't changed. God, you don't understand. There's 2 guards on duty. How you gonna come out and we got 2 guards with spears on duty? That hasn't changed my plan. Somebody need to know that your sickness hasn't changed his plans. That job loss hadn't changed his plans. Because you gotta have surgery, that don't change his plans. Because they walked out and left you, that don't change his plans. Because you had a baby out of wedlock, that don't change his plans for you. Why? Because I know the thoughts that I think toward you. What do you need to do? You need to get a proper perspective. These plans was conceived in eternity and nothing changes plans. It's fixed. Well, wait a minute, Pastor. What about if there's lack of participation? It don't change the plans. Well, if there's lack of cooperation, Pastor, it don't change the plans. Wait a minute, Pastor. You don't look at all these complications. God said there's nothing too hard for me. What about the intimidation? I'm scared. Yeah, you scared, but I ain't nothing scared of me. You remember the storm? The disciples got scared, but I wasn't scared. I got up and quieted the storm. You remember when Lazarus went to the grave? He was dead. Martha was scared, but death didn't scare me because I raised him from the dead. Nothing scares me. It might intimidate you, but it don't intimidate me. What you saying, Pastor? Don't nothing change the plans. I know the thoughts that I think for you. I know the plans that I have for you. I'm telling you this morning, God got some plans for you, but you got to have a proper perspective. Just because the plans hadn't come to pass don't mean that the plans have changed. But not only is it a fixed plan, listen at me, it's a faithful plan. What do you mean by that? I need to hear that. How do you know it's a faithful plan? Well, when you look at Jeremiah 29:11, there's a game changer in that verse. There's 3 words that seals the deal. Here it is, saith the Lord. Let's seal the deal. I know the thoughts that I think towards you. See, if Brother Hightower would have said it, I would have questioned. If I give you what I think from this pulpit, you better question it. But when I'm teaching what God has said, that's a game changer. How you know it's a game changer? Because in the Bible, you see it changing the whole game. What do you mean? David said, I live in this verse. David said, the Lord has spoken in his holiness. I will rejoice. Wait a minute, David. You don't have it yet. That don't mean I ain't going to get it because God has spoken it. He said, God spoke it. Gilead is mine. Manasseh is mine. But you don't have it yet. But if God said I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it. All I need for God to do is speak it. Pastor, give me another, Pastor. Just one more, Pastor. Just one more. Give me one more, then I can rest on it. You remember Gideon was scared? And God said, come on, I know you're scared. I know you're scared. Gideon was scared because he had but 300 men. And God spoke to him, took him down there and let him hear some, and then spoke again to him. And Gideon ran back to the camp and woke everybody up and said, get up. God has given the Midianites into our hand. Get up, let's go to battle because it's ours now. And when God has spoken over your life, well, I can preach this. It's yours. See, now see, look at, I like Romans. I didn't put that up here. Look at what he said in Romans chapter 3. I like this. I learned this when I first got saved. God taught me this. Romans chapter 3 says this into verse 4. He says, for what if some don't believe? And some don't believe what I'm saying. And it's okay because God addresses that. I like how everything that pertains to life and godliness is addressed in the scripture. Do you know that? Ain't nothing that gonna happen in your life that God don't address. That's what God said. He says, what if some don't believe? Shall their unbelief make the faith of God of none effect? What he say? What does that mean? Let me tell you what that means in English. He said, what if man don't believe? Is God less faithful because man don't believe? Watch what God responds and says. He says, God forbid. He said, let man be a liar. Every man be a liar. But God can't lie because he's the truth. Just because you don't believe it, and I know you will get in your situation, and you're in your situation now, and you've been in that situation so long, and you're saying, I don't believe it's going to happen, Pastor. God sent me here this morning to reassure you, so you can see it from his proper perspective. God going to do what he said he going to do. It's a faithful plan. It's a fixed plan, but you got to hear this one. You got to hear this one. It is, church. It's a fulfilled plan. Pastor, what do you mean by it's a fulfilled plan? I don't know if you can handle this, but a fulfilled plan means whatever God told you is already done. Can you handle this? Can you handle this naked truth? I want to see, and I guess God had to fulfill it in my life before I could teach it into your life. When God says it, it's already done. But I need to say to someone, I'm not criticizing God. I'm not putting God down. I would never do this. I'm going to tell you something about God. And I don't want you to leave this church because I'm getting ready to say this about God. But I'm going to say it anyway because it's true. God's grammar is suspect. Can you handle that? God's grammar, way he speak, leaves a lot to be desired because of what my elementary teacher taught me. And it's true what my elementary, her name was Miss Hernandez, and she taught me proper grammar. She taught me that my nouns and my verbs should always agree in terms of tense. She taught me the structure of a sentence, that there's a subject and a predicate. Is somebody with me? And that subject and that predicate should always agree in terms of tense. But God, when he speaks, Lord have mercy, he could never teach advanced English in our high schools because he is so grammatically incorrect. I'm trying to listen to God sometimes. He's saying, God, that's not how you speak. God would come and he would say things, past things, and speak of past things as present realities. Can I tell you what he said? In his bad English, but it's good theology. He says, before Abraham was, I am. And was and am don't agree in terms of tense. But when you the same yesterday, today, and forever, you just is, and you can speak of yourself from past to future as in the present. That's why he says, over and over, I am. And it just didn't start in the New Testament, Sister Dorothy. You find him in the Old Testament. Watch this. God comes in the Old Testament and tell Moses, say, go down and tell Israel, not Pharaoh, go down and tell Israel that the God sent you to freedom. And then Moses started to go, and then he started thinking, wait a minute. Moses started to go, he started thinking, he said, wait a minute, God, I know you, God, but who must I tell him sent me? Because, you know, they've been in Egypt for 400 years, and down in Egypt, they got gods on every corner down there. Who must I tell them to send me? He said, you tell them that I am. That means that when I get them out, anything they need on the trip, I'm there. If they need some heat in the nighttime, I am a pillar of fire by night. If they get too hot and need some clothes or some clouds, I am there. If they need food to come down from heaven, I am there. Ain't no water down there, but I am there. Anything that you need, God is there. If you need a comfort in the midnight hour, he's there. And I found that he is my I am, because when I need it, he is there. They asked me, they said, you going to preach your mama funeral? I said, your mama told me to preach her funeral, but I didn't know how I was going to preach mama funeral. And as I'm driving down the Bato from Orlando, the Spirit spoke expressly right to me. He said, you're going to preach, but it ain't going to be by power. It ain't going to be by might. It's going to be by his Spirit, because he's an ever-ready Spirit. So he says, I will speak about past things as a present reality. But then, he don't just speak about past things being a present reality. His grammar is so bad that he speak about future things being a present reality. Did you know that? I'm telling you, he will never be able to teach high school English, because he comes in and he tells us about future things. That's a present reality. Look what he told Solomon. He told Solomon, he said, because you didn't ask for money, because you didn't ask for a long life, he said, I have given thee. You already got it. I've given thee wisdom. He tells Abraham, who has no child. The man got no children, and look how God and his bad grandma come in and talk to this man. He said, Abraham, I have made thee, made it past this. He didn't say, I'm going to make you. He said, I have made thee a father of many nations. He come to Israel, and that's just stupid to me. He tells Israel, look at Jericho. It is securely shut up. But I have given Jericho into your hands. They hadn't even marched around Jericho. God will come to you and tell you what he has done for you. And you ain't got it yet, but you got to know it's coming. Didn't Jericho walls fall down? Didn't the children of Israel get into the promised land? Didn't David become king? Didn't Abraham become the father of many nations? And I'm telling you, he will come and speak to you about your future, and you can take it as a present reality, even though the grammar is bad. Now look what he said. He said, I know the plans for you. I know them, you don't, you just got to trust them. But see, what God has promised in time is already instilled in his mind. But all the promises of God are yea and amen. Nothing can stop the plan. Even though David going to the Philistines and trying to get in, can't stop the plans. 10 spies couldn't stop the plan. The pit, Potiphar's house, and the prison couldn't stop the palace from coming to pass. What are you saying to us, Pastor? No matter what come against you, I know the thoughts that I think towards you. I know the plans I have for you. Now, what's the composition? Watch the composition now. I'm teaching. Watch the composition. He says, I know the thoughts that I think towards you. Now the composition means what it's made of. The parts that make the sum total, that's the composition. See, you appreciate God when you appreciate how he put it together. See, that's what God gonna do with your situation. See, it don't just come together. God has to put it together. I told you he works by process. Do you know that God no longer do miracles? Oh, I just dropped the bomb. I better explain that. God no longer do miracles. He did miracles in the Testament like that because there was no scripture. There was sign. He don't do miracles. What do? He worked miracles. Miracles come as a process. He said, I'm going to do it, Sister Kim, but I'm going to work this miracle in your life. That's what he said. He said, I'm going to work a work in you that when it come to pass, you're going to say, Lord, thank you. But while I'm working it, while I told you, you ain't going to believe it. And somebody is waiting on God to work a work. And when he said, I'm gonna work a miracle. And so he said, you appreciate me more when you appreciate how I put it together. You appreciate the composition of my work, the composition of my word, the composition of my ways. Look at his work. And he says, I'm gonna work the work. Behind all of God's thoughts, behind all of God's plans is the work he do to bring them to pass. See, God done told you what he's gonna do. Now he's behind the scene working it. Joseph couldn't see him working it. He couldn't see God working that thing. And I'm telling you, God gonna see everybody in here. Now you ain't got to say amen, but I bet you I'm telling the truth. Everybody in here got a thing in their life. I don't know what the thing is. I don't want to know what the thing is, but everybody got this thing that they've been praying about, this thing. And God sent me to tell you that I'm gonna work the thing. Listen, I'm gonna tie this in and see if you can get this. I'm gonna tie this in. He says we are fearfully and wonderfully made. He said, I'm gonna work that thing just like I work this thing. I don't get it, Papa. I'm gonna work that thing like I work this thing. How did he work this thing? How am I fearfully and wonderfully made? Well, he said, you're gonna live in a world, so I got to give you something that's world conscious, that you can identify the world. So what did he do? He created a body. But the body can't do nothing. It can't detect the world until he breathed in it. He breathed in it. What did he breathe? He breathed his spirit. Now, why did he breathe the spirit in it? Because the spirit gives you God conscious, because your spirit is from God. Your body is from the earth, so it gives you world conscious or earth conscious. But wait a minute, when he breathed into you the breath of life, you don't have a soul. You do not have a soul. You don't have a soul. You became a soul. You are a soul. You became a living soul. How did I become a living soul? When the body was infused with a spirit, you became a living soul. So in theology, we call that the trichotomy of man, the trichotomy of man. I'm teaching, stay with me. So when you got this thing in your life, God got to trichotomize that thing in your life like he trichotomized this thing we call life. So you got this thing. So what did God do? He did three things. Gonna do three things with that thing in your life. That thing in your life ain't supposed to be there, because that thing in your life don't allow you to work at your optimal capacity. So God comes in, the first thing he does, he comes in and he opposes it, because it ain't supposed to be there. You can't work the work of him that sent you because you got this thing. I'm talking to somebody. You got this thing in your life. You can't be a good husband because you got this thing in your life. You can't be a good wife. You got this thing in your life. You can't be a good church member because you got this thing in your life. You can't live a normal life because you got this thing in your life. So God got to come in and first trichotomize. He got to oppose it. And after he opposes it, you don't know he's opposed, but he said, I can't let my child have that. I got to oppose it. Now, what does the next thing he do? He exposes it. He tells you about it. He said, you got this thing in your life, and this thing is keeping you from being a good husband. This thing is keeping you from being a good church member. This thing is keeping you from living a normal life. I had to expose it to you. You wondering why I can't be a good husband, why I can't be a good church member, why I can't be a good daughter. You got this thing in your life. I'm going to oppose it. I'm going to expose it. Three, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to dispose it. I'm going to get rid of it. I got to get rid of it because I created you to be all you can be. As long as you got it, I can teach this. I can teach. That's the composition of his word. But then that's the composition of his word in your life. Listen at me, I'm almost done. That's the composition of his word. It got to be three. He composes his word, and that word got to do three things in your life because you got this thing in your life. You got a thing in your life. So he gives you this word, but Pastor, what is it the word composed of? The word is composed of three things. The word is composed of spirit. The word is composed of light. And the word is composed of life. And when you got spirit, and you got light, and you got life, you add them together, you get truth. But truth is the result of those three compositions. So how does that refer to this thing in my life? I got this thing in my life. How does the word refer to this thing in my life? Let me tell you about the thing in your life. The thing in your life has taken you to a dark place. You're in a dark place. This thing has taken you to a dark. Listen at your pastor, because God sent me here to teach you. You got a dark place. Now, you don't want anybody to know it, but you got a dark place. So the Bible says, I'm going to give you this word because the interest of that word giveth what? And God says, I'm going to shine some light into that dark place. Now watch this. Even though I hadn't got rid of the thing, I sent you word to give you light about that thing. Now you can live until I dispose of it. You can live with this dark thing because the dark thing is no longer dark because I shed some light on it. How do you shed some light? I told you what I'm going to do. I gave you hope. I shed some light on that thing. Watch me now. And so you're no longer worried about, oh, I can teach this. You're no longer worried about it because you got word about it. Light, but the word is life. Life, Master? Yeah. He has to give you life because this thing in your life is not just a dead place, it's a dead thing. This thing is in your life, and in this area of your life, you're dead. Meaning you can't overcome it, you can't stop doing it, and you try to live around it, and you don't want to go through it because it's dead. So God sends word, and word adds life to that dead thing. It comes in that dead thing. So you start to say stuff like this. The word has become a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. And now I can walk through these dead places and this dead thing because I got light about it. And now God has put life in it. And now the word is spirit. Now why has it have to be spirit? Because when that spirit word hit your spirit, have that spirit word ever hit you? See, this how you know God talking to you. Because the pastor is preaching something, and when he preach about this certain thing, your spirit jump. You say, I don't know if anybody else has heard that, but I heard that. No, that was your rhema. That word was just for you. Everybody else sitting there with their hands crossed looking like a bump on a log. But when I spoke that word from God, your spirit just struck. I got that. It's just that light just hit that dark place. That light just hit that dark thing. And now you got spirit in your spirit now. And you can live on a little while until God disposes of it. Walk the walk. You can talk the talk. Listen at me now. I'm almost done. Now listen. That word, you gotta get the word because the word is a living thing. The word, look what it says now. The word has what we call this unabated ability. The world can't stand the word, but it can't withstand the word. The word gonna come to pass. The Bible says it's a discerner of the thoughts and the intents of the heart. Meaning that the word know you, then you know you. The word will come in and do a work in your life because it knows you. See, God says, I got to listen. God says, I got a plan. Listen, you got to hear this. God said, I got a plan to deal with your issue. Listen. If you listen, say amen. You got to hear this. God says, I got a plan to deal with your issue. I got a plan to deal with that thing that's in your life. But I'm going to deal with it my way. Not your way. What is God saying? God says, I'm going to deal with it my way because my ways are higher than your ways. See, when God is leading the way, you'll never understand the way. You just got to follow it. You got to follow. See, no man can, listen, the Bible says no man can understand his way when God is directing his way. Because listen, that's why we sing that song, a trial's dark on every hand, and we cannot understand all the ways that God would lead us to that blessed promised land. But we'll trust, he guides us with his eye. We'll trust him till he die, and we'll understand it better by and by. Because we can't understand what God doing, and God never meant for us to understand why he's doing it. See, the plan, here's the plan. He said the plan is based not on your merit, but the plan is based on my mercy. The plan is not based on your goodness, because a lot of times you ain't good. The plan is based on my grace. He said, here's the composite. Here's the way it comes down. The plan is thoughts of peace and not of evil. That's the composite. That's the plan. The plan is to help you, not to harm you. The plan is for your well-being, not your misfortune. The plan is to prosper you and not impoverish you. The plan is for God intentions to do you good. But you got to see it from his proper perspective. And when God is doing you good, listen, church, when God is doing you good, it ain't going to feel good. It ain't going to look good. Trust when I tell you this now, and if you don't have the proper perspective, you're going to say God ain't good. Because you ain't got the proper perspective. This is what I'm trying to give you. See, he allowed Joseph to go in the pit. That didn't feel good to that boy. He allowed Miss Potiphar alone. That didn't feel good to that boy, but God was doing him good. And God was allowing it for his good. So what are you saying, Pastor? What are you saying? I'm saying you got to have a proper perspective. You got to have the right perspective. Even though it don't look good, it's good. And your life is a wrong life when you don't have the right perspective. Your life is complicated when you don't have the right perspective. See, we're men to say this simple because they ain't got the right perspective. I want her because she look good. And God says, you got the wrong perspective. He says, look again. Look closely this time. And yeah, you're going to see some hips swaying, hips swinging, arm clinging. But look at the baggage she bringing. Yeah, you're going to see some things that you like. You're going to see it. You're going to see looks to kill, but ain't no domestic skill. Can't boil water, but she look good at the beach in water. You got the wrong perspective, ladies. Yeah, he handsome, but he a handful. You thought you was getting a handsome man, you got a handful of man. Love the world, stuck in his ways, and won't work on a pie train with Oreo wheels. But you got it. And you hate it now because you didn't have the right perspective. You got to have the right perspective. That's what I'm trying to teach you. God, listen, God plans have purpose. You do know that. Now, what's the purpose? I'm almost done. I know it took you a little longer, but you need to hear this. What's the purpose of God plan? Here's the purpose. There's a purpose in all this. Do you good. The purpose is for God to take you somewhere. Listen, if you notice in the Bible, when God works, he's always taking his people somewhere. When he comes to Abraham, he tells Abraham, get up, get Lot and Sarah. Where we going? I'm taking you somewhere. Well, I'll tell you when we get there, but I'm taking you somewhere. When he sent he sent Moses back to Egypt for what? To take the children of Israel somewhere. Every time you find God, God is taking his people somewhere. He sent Christ down through 42 generations to do what? To take his people somewhere, to take them from a sin nature to a divine nature. When Jesus Christ come back, when he descended with a shout, you know why he descended? To take us somewhere. Everywhere you look in scriptures, he's taking his people somewhere. And listen, that has not changed. It won't change because the plan has purpose. But the plan has what I call, it's a new word for you, it has what I call profundity. What do you mean? It's deep. Do you know that God is deep? You got a deep God. He say one thing and infer another one. You ever notice that about God? He'll say one thing and he'll infer another one. He'll say stuff like, come unto me. Come unto me. You know what he's inferring? It'll be in your best interest not to stay where you're at. He's always inferring something when he says something. But not only is he inferring something, he's doing something while he's doing something. You remember on the boat? Remember on the boat, and they got scared. They said, "Master, care us not that we perish. We finna perish." Well, what was God doing? He was doing something while he was doing something. What was he doing? He was letting them see Christ's humanity while looking at his divinity. I don't get it. They saw Christ sleep, his humanity, but they saw him wake up out of a sleep and quiet a storm. They saw his divinity. Anytime God is doing something, he's always doing something else. When he gets you out the world, what is he doing? He's making a place to get the word in you. So that the last thing that talks about the fruition of God. Forgive me for going a little longer, but the fruition of God, that's the realization of the fulfillment. Now, what am I telling you? God gonna fulfill the promise in your life. He gonna fulfill it. God gonna do it. He that have begun a good work in you, he gonna complete it. If he don't complete what he told you, he ain't God. God gonna complete what he told you. Look what I want you to see what he says now. He gonna tell you how the story gonna end. Look what he says. He says, I'm gonna give you an expected end. You can expect to come to pass when I told you about that thing. He said, if I promise you, you can expect it. And all over the scripture, you see, listen, you see people of God getting what God told them is to expect. David, you're going to be king. Expect to go to the throne. Children of Israel, you're going in the promised land. Expect to go in the promised land. Every time God tells them something to expect, Gideon, you're going to get victory. Expect to win. Disciples, he going to rise again. Go back to Galilee like he told you. Expect him to rise again. Whatever God told you, expect it. You have a right to expect what God told you because God always brings his plan to fruition. But wait a minute, let me just warn you of this. Let me warn you of something. Expect it, but while you on the road to getting what you expect the unexpected. The last verse I'm going to break down for you, and then I'm done. Isaiah 42:16. Put that on the board. Now watch what he said. Expect the unexpected. He says, and I will bring you to, I'm going to bring the blind. I'm going to bring you, because you blind. You don't know how this thing going to come to pass. I'm going to bring you by a way that you don't know. You never saw it coming. You never expected it. I'm gonna bring you by a way. I'm gonna deal with that thing in your life by a way that you could never conceive. I'm gonna do it, but it ain't gonna be by the way you think. He said, expect what you never expected. Moses never expected to come off the back side of the desert and come to the front side. Elijah faced 450 men. He never expected to run from one woman. Expect what I'm going to give you, but expect unexpected. Jacob wrestled figuratively with Laban, but he never expected to wrestle literally with God. Who expect to wrestle with God all night? Who expect God to touch the hollow of their thigh and they going to remember God by every time they limp? And God sent me to tell you, just like Sarah laughed, but she never expected to name that child Laughter. We call him Isaac, which means laughter. God said, why you laughing? She said, I ain't laughing. He said, yes, you did. I heard you. But expect to have a baby that you're going to name Laughter. Mary was expecting, but she expected to have a son come out of her womb, but she never expected her son to have to come out the tomb. God didn't tell her that. The disciples expected the Lion of Judah, but they never expected the Lamb of God. That's why they were so messed up when he died. They expected him to reign, but they never saw a sacrifice. I'm talking to you because God gonna do it in your life, but he gonna do it in a way that you never expected. You still gonna get your expected end. Why God do it like that? Because you're being divinely directed. He wants you to know that when you get it, you didn't bring it on yourself. He wants you to know that he's going to reduce you down to 300 so you won't think you got the victory. He wants you to know that when he do it, you're going to know he did it. You're going to know he for you. Now, you should already know he for you. Why? Because, listen, I told you should never think highly of yourself. You got to know he for you, because why should I think highly of myself? Because every time you see something bad, you should say, there goes I, except for the grace of God. When you see a drug addict on the street, there goes I, except for the grace of God. When you see the homeless, there go I, except for the grace of God. When I was walking through the hospital to see Brother DeWitt, every time I passed the room, I said, there goes I, except for the grace of God. When you pass by jail, you should say, there go I, except for the grace of God. God got to be with me, and I'm being divinely directed, because I can look at them people and know I was on the same track as they was on. But for some reason, God gave me grace. What are you saying as I close? What are you saying? He said, look what he said in the last half of verse 16. He said, I will do it. Look what he said now. He said, I will make darkness light before you. Not the way you expect it. I'm going to make darkness. I'm going to make crooked things straight in your life. He said, he said, all these things, I'm going to do. What God is saying, leave it up to me to do it. You ain't got to force it. Leave it up to me to do it. Listen. He says, this thing is from the Lord. Expect him to do the lead and the directing. See, when it's his business, he take care of business. When it's his way, he make a way out of no way. When it's his thing, watch him do his thing. When the door is closed, watch him open the door that no man can shut. You're just a man. That's who you are. You're just like me. You're just a woman, a man. I'm not a woman, I'm saying you're just like me. Human. What does that mean as I close? That means you got to allow him to be God. That's what you got to do. You got to allow him to be God. Well, Pastor, how do I allow him to be God? By always seeing it from a proper perspective. Bow your head.